Hey guys, how's it going? I've got some tips and tricks for you, and in this one I want to talk about the Blacksmith's Apprentice backstory. So this backstory is another one of the more unique ones that forces you to do some things differently than you normally would, but I'm going to talk about some stuff that makes it a lot easier. So first things first, you can't sell anything, of course. Well, you can, but it goes towards the victory and not into your pocket. This means you have to be more careful than usual with your planning and acquiring your gear. You can't sell off some items to afford another one. The only sure way of making some money outside of the fight is by trading fame, so it can help a lot to have a good fame bonus. Another thing to remember when you're buying gear is that it's not going to be ready to use right away. The items you buy start off damaged, so you have to let them sit for a week to get repaired. Now, the nice thing about buying gear on the Blacksmith is the discount rate. You get more discounts than normal, and if you can get a bigger discount like 40 or 45%, it makes some of the best items in the game pretty affordable, and you'll turn a nice profit on them when you sell them to the Blacksmith. So like any other backstory, try to get a good weapon as soon as possible, but after that, I'd recommend saving your money for big discounts and buying stuff then. Also, don't worry about buying too much gear early on. If you can get something with a big discount, then that's great, but focus on getting a gear set you actually want to use first, and then you can buy extra stuff afterwards. Saving most of your money for the late game can be a really good strategy as well, since you can knock out the 100k really quickly when you can buy a bunch of high tier stuff. As always, you'll want to check the bets every week and maybe do some 1v-minis to make the most money. Now, I've got a few tips for buying and acquiring gear, since that's really what this backstory is all about. So saving your money for discounts is good, but save your fame too. Not only can you trade your fame for more money, but you'll also want some left over to reroll the item shop and buy inventory slots if you need to. I like to get these slots open nice and early so that you don't miss out on any items just because you can't fit them. It's good to be friendly with Jordis if you can as well, because he'll help you with rerolls and inventory spaces. And one more way you can use fame is to order items in the shop. This isn't perfect because there's no way to predict what discount you'll have, but if you have a lot of money and you want to get a few high tier items at once, this is a good way to do it. Another way you might want to try getting some gear outside of the store is with spoils to the victor. So there are a few things to consider with these fights. First of all, make sure you don't bring in an expensive weapon if you're going to leave it behind. I like to bring something cheap or even no weapon at all, especially if I have a team to help me. I'd recommend staying away from 1v-many spoils fights since the payout is less because of the spoils, and you don't really want to bring a weaker weapon into one of these fights either. If you're going to do 1v-many, just do it normally for the money. Now, some good enemies to target in spoils early on are pit bosses and shield breakers. They tend to use some pretty expensive two-handed weapons. In fact, most enemies that use two-handers are pretty good for it, since two-handers tend to be worth a lot. So guys like Executors, Lafosi Vanguard as well. Later on, Linoleum Spearmen can be really good because you could get a Faradaka and a shield. Hanian Captains use some really expensive weapons. Obviously, these guys can be dangerous too though, so be smart about it and try to get a cheaper weapon that you still like a lot to use against these guys. For example, the Kappa is a great weapon and pretty cheap, or even something like a Hanian Staka will still let you turn a nice profit if you swap it for a Faradaka. And speaking of holding on to some different weapons, another thing I'd say is don't sell things right away as soon as they're repaired. The only reason to sell your stuff is if you need the inventory room for more items or if you're ready to win. Otherwise, there's no reason not to hold on to something because you never know if it might come in handy. If you do need to sell, don't worry about the refund amount because you always get the item's full value with this backstory. So now when you do have a full inventory of nice gear, remember to check on it and see how far you are from the victory. Once you get going, the value of your gear can add up really quickly and you might get to 100k sooner than you'd think. Count it up, and if you do have enough, go ahead and sell everything. Just make sure to double check if it's close, because you don't want to sell everything then still have to do more fights after. And that's that. In the end, this isn't a bad backstory to complete once you get going. You really just need a few pieces of high tier gear to take some big chunks out of the total and eventually get the victory. If you want more general tips or in-fight tips, go check out my other tips and tricks videos. There's a ton of stuff in those. Also, check out my other backstory guides if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.